This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, and I am your host, not Mike Rapin. I'm Daniel Martinez, and today I'm joined by two legendary card pools in a sea of common bulk, Zach McCrary.
Ahoy, hoy.
And Kait Scotchless.
Hey.
You know, when Mike said, we're coming back and I'm not going to be there, I was like, okay, well, that's nice, Mike. Thank you very much. Mike is on assignment, but he will be back. So think of this episode. I was going to do the whole John Wick thing of like, they keep asking if we're back and like, here we are. So think of this as your John Wick, we're back moment for I Read Comic Books. So as we get started, we have two legally mandated questions. And I'm going to start over there with you, Zach, because that's what we decided in the numbers. How have you been? How have comic books been?
Man, I can't complain. Life's pretty good. It's a summer vacation. Got the kiddo at home all the time. Taking him to the library just like every other week, which has been a bunch of fun. Like getting him introduced into reading regularly for fun rather than just because he has no choice at school. I've been really enjoying that. Yeah, can't complain, man.
Did you do anything exciting over the IRCB summer break? I know as adults it's like, well, summer doesn't really mean much. But during the break, did you do anything exciting?
Just taking some small trips with the family here and there, going to because my family came from Vietnam, so like I've been taking them to like the different Asian markets that are within our region. Luckily, I'm like in the DMV area, and there's just a ton of those that we can go to, and they can get the foods from home and stuff like that, and that's been a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. And how comic books been?
And comics have been good too. Been doing a lot of reading. Can't complain.
Now, today we're going to be focusing on the Goodreads Book of the Month theme. I think we all picked the book, which is Disability Pride Month. And that's kind of the theme that you'll hear across all the talk. But of course, we kind of come from all kinds of backgrounds when it comes to these picks. So, Zach, what did you read?
When this was presented to me, I had a couple different thoughts, and one of the ones that came to front of mind was one of my favorite characters, the Sentry, because I loved that Marvel Knights run back in the early 2000s. And then I realized that this topic also pertained to the brand new Sentry book that just came out last year, even more like just as much as that original run. So the Sentry, he may be my most the most interesting Superman analog character to me, although I'm very much over the need for a grimdark Superman and much prefer like the real Man in Blue and his hopeful nature as I've gotten older. There was a time where I was absolutely in love with the original Marvel Knights book, and at the core of the Sentry is this story of not only a person dealing with dissociative identity disorder, but also of a good man and a hero struggling with addiction and the monster that it brings out of him. And both of those, I feel like, kind of fall into this category. And that's really what drew me in the story of Bob Reynolds, as he felt his powers fading and he continued to take more and more of the serum because he got to a point where he was like, if I'm not the Sentry, who am I? And the fact that the void that seemingly grew to be worse and worse of a threat, the more his addiction started to take hold within him. And little did they know, of course, that the void itself was Bob's darker half. And so I've always loved that book. And when the Sentry died for like the third or fourth time, Jason Liu, because, okay, so the original book, I should give the shout outs proper. Original book 2000, written by Paul Jenkins, art by Jay Lee, colors by Jose Villarubio, and letters by Richard Starkings and Comicraft/Wes Abbott. And then there is the 2024 book, written by Jason Liu, artist Luigi Zagaria, colors by Arthur Hesley, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. And that book I found fascinating because Liu comes in at this time when the Sentry is again dead for like the third or fourth time. It always makes me sad that they just keep killing him off. And had this idea of what if when Bob Reynolds died, his powers were transferred to other people he'd previously been in contact with in some form or another. And one person gaining speed and another person gaining flight, et cetera, et cetera. And then they each feel the memories of him. And what if one of those people realized that this was basically Highlander, and if he killed the rest, he would have the full power of 10,000 exploding suns. So this book, Lou introduced us to one of those people in the character of Mallory Gibbs, a young woman with cerebral palsy, and begs the question of what does a superhuman with that malady face when they have these ultimate powers? And at one point, she literally collapses the building that she lives on, because when they get the powers, it just kind of happens, they just boom. And so she's got cerebral palsy and like shakes and stuff, and the building she lives in collapses underneath her, and she feels obviously terrible about it, and she's dealing with this guilt of like, I can't have this. Like, I can't have these powers. This is dangerous. I'm dangerous with this. And having to come to terms with that, and starting to feel like, could I be a hero, or should I be locked away, or like, how is this going to play out? And over the course of the run, through the fear of what she might accidentally do, she begins to learn to master it, and then along with some new technology becomes the hero she didn't realize she could be. So for me, like, the Sentry from Marvel in general, so far anyway, has really been like about heroes with serious disorders and problems like that. And so yeah, that's why that was my choice.
Wow. I mean, not only that, I think the Sentry's had a heck of a year after that Thunderbolts movie. I've read the Paul Jenkins stuff. I've read it a long time ago. And I did get to see Jay Lee this summer at one of our conventions. So that was nice. He did a Sentry sketch for me, which was nice. But I saw the Jason Liu stuff come out, and I read the first one, and I was like, oh, I'll come back to this. So just your description of this and how interesting these characters sound now really kind of made me want to go back. Because this series, now that it's done, I'm like, oh, I should go back and check this out. So maybe that's something that I should be looking forward to. But I agree with you. Like, it just sounds like a great pitch. And the fact that the powers kind of split up amongst a bunch of people that all kind of have different lives and probably different issues and problems and stuff, So very cool. That sounds very, very cool. Now, let's move on. Kait, how have you been? How are comic books been? How's your summer break been? Give us all the highlights here.
Yeah, I'm not really on summer break. The grind continues to grind, as it were, trying to finish dissertation here. But otherwise, things are good. I had never even heard of that character, Zach, so that's interesting. I'll have to check that out. I went with a graphic novel called Navigating with You by Jeremy Whitley, illustrated by Cassio Ribeiro, which is a like slow burn friends to crushes to perhaps romance, as it were, between two girls who start at a new school at the same time. They're both a new person, right? And so they kind of attach to one another. And one of them, Nesha, is disabled. She has cerebral palsy, and she's pretty shy, but she is really passionate about like community activism for LGBT issues and for disability rights kind of stuff. And I feel like this book handles her disability and her activism and the issues around that well, especially like how a high schooler would go about it and the concerns and anxieties they'd have versus an adult. Like, she's not sometimes they write these characters as if they're like a 35-year-old activist, right? Versus how kids act. But she's really into costume design and like making cosplay outfits for people. And they figure out, she and Gabby, the other new girl, figure out pretty quickly they're both into the same manga series that they both didn't finish. And they're like, let's do a book club and actually finish the series. We'll reread what we read before and then find the rest. But it turns out this is out of print, and on eBay they're like $1,000 a book or something crazy, right? So they have a quest. They have to track down all these editions and then read them. And so that's what the story is about, is them trying to find each book and then reading each book. And so the story intersperses with pages from this manga. So you have kind of a story within a story about this race between stars kind of thing. And so it's a slice of life romance, and they're kind of going on this adventure across North Carolina, but also getting closer and closer to one another and opening up to one another. And it's very sweet. Gabby has her own struggles she's dealing with complex grief and anxiety after the loss of a parent. And so I thought it was really sweet. It's a great OGN, and really appreciated this rec from Goodreads. I think Aaron recommended this one, which was I didn't know what to read for this, and so when I saw Aaron always has good picks, so I'm like, perfect, I'll do that one. It was on Libby, so I was able to get this, from the library on my iPad, and I'd recommend it to anyone who. I'm not a romance comic person, so I would say if you like slice of life, this also applies to you. In terms of a recommendation, it's not so heavy on the romance that it's not appealing to people who aren't typically into those comics.
I mean, and when it comes to the slice of life, like you named a lot of things that we've all three probably dealt with. Like, right, we want to read a book, we're falling behind forever, so we're trying to instigate
Yep.
a way of how to catch up on it by starting a book club or doing it socially. But then it's also out of print. Like when you were talking about that, I was like, this is very relatable content for me. So
I'm not even a manga reader, and have ran into this not that long ago trying to read Transformers comics that Kara recommended. And it's like, there's not a digital edition. The print edition is out of print. You have to go to eBay. It's like $300. I'm like, it's not happening. Sorry.
I just want to see robots punching each other.
Uh-huh.
I do want to ask Kait, how sometimes I feel like authors are, struggled capturing voices of younger characters. How was this? Because I don't know what teenagers sound like in 2025. But how was this for you?
Yeah. I would say this comic does not use current teen slang at all. I don't spend time around teenagers. I spend time around undergrads, though, which isn't a huge difference. And they're definitely not using Gen Z slang in this, which I think is honestly, if the author and illustrator aren't that it, and so it gets awkward and forced feeling often. So I'm honestly fine with people just skipping that aspect of it. I think their actions and thought processes and everything of the kids is feels real instead of being too mature, which I appreciated. And it has the kind of hallmark teenage thing where they have moments of maturity and moments of being, they're still kids. So it read real to me without having like overly forced hip dialogue, as it were. There's no skibbity toilets.
I think that's the most. It's not cringe.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is that like we've all been teenagers, and even though the verbiage might change, what it is to be a teenager is generally the same, no matter what generation you look at. So as long as you get that, it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it would date a book too if they had too much current slang in it. If you read it in like 20 years, you'd be like, what? What about you, Danny?
So I was looking through the preview because I think this is where Zach may be going. I love the transition from the regular art to the manga stuff. So yeah, great recommendation there, Kait. And Aaron does such a good job with the Goodreads group, like not just putting together the list and finding stuff to recommend, because that's also the first thing I did. I was like, I don't know where to start here, but I know that Aaron's already done a lot of the legwork. So big shout out to Aaron. Check out our Goodreads group. I feel like it works so much. It's so independent of the Discord. It's almost like two different worlds. Feels like visiting an alternate universe almost in the IRCB cinematic universe.
So old school web forum.
Right. Yeah, right. We just need one more place to post our fan fiction, and then I think we'll be all good. Um, but I've been doing very well. It's been a very great summer, and maybe we'll talk about some of this stuff on the post show because superheroes are kicking butt on the big screen. So that's been a lot of fun as somebody that I've never seen so many people ask me like how to get into comics. So big shout out to James Gunn and Matt Shagman for that. And also this summer, it's time for me to evolve a little bit. So I've been listening to audiobooks, and I know what you're thinking, like, but Danny, your whole thing is that you don't like to read books. But Ryan Gosling changed my mind when that Project Hail Mary trailer dropped, and I saw that it was based on a book, and my brother is like, it's a really good book. You should check it out. We already have it on our library, our shared library. So I just wrapped that up this weekend. So maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that, or maybe other stuff that we've been into this summer in the after show. So I'll save it for that.
Love that audiobook.
It's
I'm curious now.
Great voice performer. So yeah, but I'll talk more about that because I started a new book today. But we'll save that for the post credits. I was looking for a way to both fulfill the theme of the month and then also pick something that I think Mike would enjoy since he's not here, and since he's kind of missing out on this episode. So I picked a book called Age of X from 2011. I don't know if this is collected or not because I read all the single issues on the Marvel Unlimited app. But it's a story by Mike Carey with art by Clayman, who was doing the X-Men Legacy issues, and Steve Kurth, who was doing the New Mutants at the time. We also have Gabriel Hernandez Walta, who jumped in on a one-shot that they had with colors by Marte Gracia and Brian Reber, letters by Corey Petit. And the reason that I picked this book was because it focuses around the character of David Haller, aka Legion, who longtime listeners of the show know that Mike loves Legion, maybe as much as Gambit. I don't know. We'll have that's a Mike question. So send him an email.
I don't know about that.
I think it's Gambit is the truest love.
Yeah,
the most distilled version for sure. But I know Mike loves Legion, so I picked this for that. Now, obviously, if you have read Legion, he also suffers from a dissociative identity disorder. Which also is kind of his mutant power, right? All these different powers come from that in his mind. So I think it's a really interesting character to explore. But this book goes about it in a very interesting way. One thing I didn't think that this book would touch on was the bodily autonomy of David Haller and how all the problems come from other people making decisions for him about his life and how he goes about treating his own mind. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, it is a Marvel book, so it doesn't go too deep into that, which I wasn't expecting it to go into it. But I think Mike Carey does a good job of at least raising the question and making that part of an issue. But then also, this is superhero shenanigans. So it's a big X-Men crossover in which we jump into an alternate reality where mutants have been hunted down near to extinction. In this world, there are no X-Men. Xavier's dream never really happened. The mutants have been outlaws for pretty much the whole time, and there's only a small group of them that survive, which Legion kind of leads all of them with this group, and he's the one that's keeping everything together. But as we get through the story, some cracks start to appear in the facade of what's going on in this world. It's a very character-driven story. I think the unique take, like whenever you go to an alternate universe in any of these superhero stories, you have the flexibility to do a lot of really cool things and just change the characters in a way that that they've never really been without any of the big consequences of like having to keep up with continuity and all that. I think the artists do a really good job at giving us these visually strong, really cool character arcs, character designs for this new world. but also just big battles. Like there are some pages that have probably like 20, 30 characters in them, and I'm like, goodness great, how did you put this out on a monthly basis? And I can see why it's a crossover between two different books, because then you have the flexibility of like your book really comes out every other month to complete the story. So it was a great read. I had a lot of time, a lot of fun with it. um this is from an era where I had just started reading comics, so I think I just missed this, just based on the dates from the books, because I think they were coming out they started in 2010, and I really got into comics like late 2011. So this was probably right before I jumped into comic books that hard. But I highly recommend it, Mike. If you're listening to this, I think you'll really enjoy this book. So
This one, it's a good read. I really enjoyed this book, and I said before to you before we started the show, it was on the short list of possible books I was going to choose here, because Legion is such a fascinating character with what, you know, when written well, Legion is just so fascinating to me, and I've always enjoyed getting to read stuff that he's a part of and the star of.
Mm-hmm. And he's got a great haircut.
Totally great haircut. Looking like the Slim Jim guy from those old commercials.
I know, yeah, very much of a throwback, but I love that idea. I think I hadn't read much Mike Carey, which I also thought was very interesting, because it seems like he was very prolific in that time. So this makes me want to kind of go back and dig a little bit more into some of that stuff. So, all right, let's move on to talk about the top of our pile. I think there's a few people from the Discord that gave us their picks, so we'll start with shouting them out. We have CK reading New Gods #7. That is a fantastic book from DC Comics. Ramvi doing some really amazing stuff. So if you like the New Gods, I highly recommend that as well. And then we also have Paul reading a little unknown book called Parker Girls from Terry Moore, which does not have like I don't know how many issues that book is, but really glad to see that back up on the. I'm always happy to see Terry Moore's name pop up in our list. So let's move on to Zach. What are you reading next? What's on the top of your pile? And I don't know how you pick just one book, but let me know how we got here.
Well, this one I picked up on my most recent trip to the local library, and I like Stephanie Phillips, and I had never heard of this one from her before, so I snagged it. It's called The Butcher of Paris, written, like I said, Stephanie Phillips, art by Dean Kotz, colors by Jason Wordy, letters by Troy Peteri. This one is based on a true story of a prolific serial killer in German-occupied France during World War II named Marcel Petiot. And it's not really about him, but it's around him and the search for him. And Phillips stumbled upon the story of this monster while reading a book about the German occupation of France, and was shocked that she had never heard of this before, and did a deep dive because she's that kind of nerd, and I love it. And so Petiot was part of the resistance in France. Other resistance members would send people his way, like Jewish people trying to escape. They'd pay him for his help to get them out of the country, and then instead he would funnel them into his torture dungeon and do absolutely despicable things. And no one was any the wiser, because they assumed he'd been helping these poor people escape the danger of France of the time, not knowing that they'd sent them straight into the hands of even more danger. It's crazy. And eventually this guy was being hunted not only by the French police, but also the Gestapo, because he was French resistance. And Phillips, the thing that I like about this book is that Phillips focuses on that part of the story. This isn't true crime media meant to glorify the killer, which unfortunately is the way a lot of true crime goes, where there's this heavy focus on just like the killer and not about the people that, you know, they destroyed the lives of, or about the people who took them down. And it's about Paris of the 1940s and the tensions within. And she said it was about, quote, a city once known as the City of Light going dark. And I thought that was a pretty good umbrella statement for what this book really is. It's really well put together and a fascinating tale about a happening during World War II that completely gets overlooked by history, maybe even buried by, you know, the country it happened in. Like, I don't want to throw any salt, but maybe. And yeah, the art is really gorgeous. It's very realistic, and it's got a lot of detail, which I think is important for like a gritty kind of almost mystery novel. Like it's because, you know, we as the reader know why this is happening and what happened, but we're watching the people figure it out in real time. As like, I think like, you know, something happens where the police wind up at Petiot's house. He's not there, but they discover everything that's been going on in his basement, and they got to piece it all together. And then the Gestapo gets involved, you know, because we're following the French detectives, but then the Gestapo starts getting involved, and they're like, well, this is ours now, and that kind of stuff happens. And there's a lot of tension, and it's fascinating to me. It's a fascinating read.
Nice. I'm a big fan of Stephanie Phillips. I've read a lot of both her creator-owned stuff. I think her book Grimm is coming to an end pretty soon as well, if you like a story about Soul Reapers. And also, or Grim Reapers, not Soul Reapers are from Bleach. Sorry. I got manga on the brain. But yeah, this is one I haven't read either, but I remember those covers very distinctly because it's like a big cleaver knife, which like but with the Eiffel Tower, just really very catching imagery. Like it's a very well designed cover. So I should read this because Dark Horse they put out really good collections too. So I'm sure this book looks great as well. Very interesting, and I think Phillips's work focuses on a lot of that time period as well, because it is important, like you mentioned, Zach, to not really talk about some of the people that were doing all this horrible stuff, but like the consequences around it and how the people around were kind of being affected by all this, right? That's sometimes a part that gets overlooked because it's not as I don't know, flashy or whatever, however you want to call it.
Yeah, so, I think flashy is exactly it. Like it's more interesting to focus on Ted Bundy rather than the people that Ted Bundy, you know, took away. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, if you think this show's been a roller coaster, wait till you see Kait. What do you have at the top of your pile?
So I top of my pile is The Jellyfish by Bohm. This is actually the book that I wanted to read for this discussion, for this episode. So it fits the Disability Pride Month too. But Evil Black Sheep recommended on Goodreads. I hadn't heard of it because this is one of the deeper categories of the Eisners, but it just won Best U.S. Edition of International Material. And unfortunately, it's not on digital, at least that I could find. So it was at my library, but I wasn't able, like, I didn't have the time to go to the library to get this. So they aren't open Sundays. So I'm going tomorrow, and they have it sitting on my hold shelf for me. So I'm very excited. It looks very pretty. It has great reviews from friends that I trust on Goodreads. I have a lot of like online Goodreads friends, right? Because I'm a dork. But it's about a 20-something named Odette who works at a local bookstore and has a pet rabbit and is just like doing her 20-something life with a growing crush on a cute girl in her neighborhood. And something starts going wrong. She starts seeing something only she can see, which in this case is a jellyfish, thus the title. And it's blocking her vision. And at first it's like this minor annoyance, but then one day there's two jellyfish. And so the art looks just beautiful. I do not know yet what this what disability this is going to be. Is she going blind? Is she schizophrenic? I don't know. Someone who had read this book could tell you, but not me, since this is to come. But it looks beautiful. It's supposed to be about facing the things we fear and finding a way through, kind of thing. So I'm excited for that. I feel like that kind of topic really speaks to me right now. In the last couple of years with dealing with my own health issues and trying to figure out how to kind of have a life despite some pretty significant neurologic issues and a degenerative diagnosis. So that's what I'm really excited about. I have a couple other OGNs sitting on the hold shelf for me too, but this is definitely going to be the first one I actually read. How about you, Danny?
So I'm on the I'm on the powpow.com edition. Like, this is kind of where the publisher of the book, and I'm reading a little bit about the author, and it does say that over the past 15 years, Bohm has suffered from a number of eye conditions. So I think your assessment of just by looking at the art, it could be something to that
a
vein.
vision problem.
This this has it's a very the art preview that they have on the website is very striking because it is all black and white. So I imagine the whole book is in that same vein. This is very. I'm gonna have to now also check if my library has this available. And we continue with our ever-growing problem of maybe we'll never get to the end of our pile of comics to read because we just keep putting stuff.
That's the thing. TBR lists are meant to always grow, not shrink. I can never. It's much faster to add books than to read them.
For sure.
I like that. I think it's a good problem to have, though, because you always there's always something new and there's always something being added to the pile. And this is on my pile now because I'm very curious about this book.
Well, if you want to keep up with that, maybe we'll share our thoughts on the Goodreads because we do have a discussion thread for this month's topic. So that'll be fun to kind of explore on the Goodreads. And there's a lot of people that have already, like, I saw some people talking about the Hawkeye by Matt Fraction on the Goodreads group.
That run.
Phenomenal.
It's great. So yeah, a lot of the best opinions come from just reading some of the people on the discussion thread that we don't normally interact with because they don't really post on the Discord. So once again, let me plug in the Goodreads since we're really deep into this topic. But as far as what I'm reading next, it's always hard to pick just one thing. So I am going to mention two books very briefly, but they're by the same author.
Cheater.
So maybe I know. Yeah. Maybe that counts as one. It is by the same authors, but it is a pair of writers. So the thing I'm reading next is Blink and You'll Miss It from Boom Studios. This is a new book by Ethan Parker and Griffin Sheridan, who you might know. They did Kill Your Darlings last year, maybe,
Great
or
book.
the year before that.
Great book.
Yeah, from Image Comics, with art by Keith Browning and colors by Brad Simpson. This is a mind-bending new fairy tale. It follows Melody Nelson and Jesse Harmon, who fell in love a long time ago in a tiny town of Perennial Harbor. But since they parted ways, that place has grown stranger and stranger. Everything is just as it was decades ago, and the strange smiles of residents mask a bizarre secret. When Melody's life begins to unravel, she finds herself slipping backward in time. She must uncover the truth behind the mystery before it destroys her and the only one she's ever cared for. This sounds pretty rad as far as like just a really cool mystery intertwined with kind of like this love story or relationship. So based on these guys' previous work, I'm very excited for that. And the other book I'm going to mention, I guess it's not really on the top of my pile because I did get a chance to read it thanks to my friends at IDW, but these guys, Ethan Parker and Griffin Sheridan, also have Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone with this whole new Godzilla Renaissance Kaisei era that IDW is doing. So I highly recommend you check that one out. That one has art by Pablo Tunica, and it focuses on these new kaiju human hybrids that they're introducing as part of the whole mythology. So I highly recommend you check out this new Godzilla stuff because it's really fun. It's bonkers stuff, but it's really fun. So all right, I think we did it. Did we do an episode with that mic? Check. So yeah, we'll see what Mike has to say. I always look forward to our performance review at the end of the month when we do an episode. So it'll be really fun to hear from Mike. But that's gonna be it. So thanks to everyone on the show. Kait, Zach, always a pleasure to talk and catch up with you guys, especially because we hadn't really talked in a long. It always feels longer when we come back from the break, which is crazy because we have our own group chat on for the show, right? So thank you to Kait as well for proof listening. Kait Lamphere, which is also a really fun problem that I love hanging out with both Kait and Kait. And then, of course, to the wizard, Zander, for editing this episode. And Mike, thank you for letting me host this episode. Those are big shoes to fill, but here I am doing my best. So until next time, comics are good, and so are you.